Hello, my name is Tony Mays. I am the Commonwealth of Learning's Education Specialist for Open Schooling. This is the first of several presentations, each of which summarizes the key issues in different chapters of Cole's new publication addressing the needs of out-of-school children and youth through expansion of open schooling. This first presentation discusses Chapter 1, which sets the foundation for the rest of the book. Chapter 1 explores the need for and the nature of open schooling. The discussion is built around 5 key questions. Why do we need open schooling? What is open schooling anyway? What is the open schooling theory of change? What is the open schooling model? And what are the implications for future provision? So let us begin with the first question. Why do we need a new approach to schooling? In 2018, the United Nations Children's Fund estimated that there were over 300 million children out of school, about a third of them in conflict or disaster zones. This is a crisis of access, calling for new models of schooling provision. More recently, the Global Education Monitoring Report indicates that we have a crisis not only of access, but also of quality, with particular challenges being faced in sub-Saharan Africa with its young and growing population. So thinking about your own context, which learners are excluded from schooling and in need of an open schooling approach? But what is open schooling? So open schooling makes use of open, distance and/or e-learning methods to overcome any barriers to access and success in schooling. Children often cannot access or succeed because they are considered too old for a particular grade, or because the education of boys is valued over that of girls, or because families cannot afford the time, the fees, the uniforms, the textbooks, or the transport, or for a host of other reasons. If the child cannot come to the school, then we need to use open distance and e-learning methods to take the school to the children. We can identify 2 broad approaches to open schooling. In a complementary approach, we follow the same curriculum that is used in mainstream schooling. This is probably most appropriate for children of school-going age who are not in school. An added advantage of this approach is that the learning resources developed for open schooling can also be used to support day scholars, for example, where certain subjects are not being offered in the day school, or when a day scholar is struggling to progress and needs extra support. In an alternative approach, we offer routes to gaining a school-leaving equivalent qualification or experience, but follow a different curriculum. For example, for youth and adults who could not access or did not complete schooling, a more technical or vocational curriculum may be more appropriate. Open schools take different forms and can be found all over the world, from Africa to Asia to the Americas to the Pacific. Sometimes they are standalone institutions. Sometimes they take the form of initiatives within universities or ministries of education. There is no one-size-fits-all model or approach for open schooling. The common link is a shared commitment to overcoming barriers to access and success through flexible modes of provision, using open, distance and e-learning methods. So what is the open schooling theory of change? A theory of change assumes that in order to achieve desired impacts, for example, more learners access and complete schooling, we need to achieve interim outcomes. For example, more teachers can use open distance and e-learning methods to support out-of-school youth, and related outputs. For example, a number of teachers are trained in using open distance and e-learning methods. These in turn require certain activities, for example, training workshops, and certain inputs, for example, development of training courses, finances to support a face-to-face or online workshop. But it's a theory, so we need to monitor, evaluate, and change as needed. So let us explore the theory of change for open and innovative schooling. The number of out-of-school youth and adolescents is unacceptably high and even beginning to increase in some regions. Youth and adults who have not completed schooling are often unable to access employment or other education and training opportunities, and having no stake in society and or feeling marginalized by society may be more easily radicalized or drawn to antisocial behavior as the only means to survive. In an increasingly global knowledge society, successful completion of schooling is a prerequisite for active and productive citizenship. The present formal schooling system cannot cope with the number of learners presently in schools, let alone address the needs of out-of-school children, youth, and adults. Open innovative schooling, as a model, can address the global challenge of out-of-school children, youth, and adults by enabling more learners to complete schooling. This is an outcome. 4 prerequisites for open innovative schools to become successful are well-trained teachers, quality learning resources, appropriate use of technology, and good management of the open schools and support centers. These are outputs resulting from appropriate activities and inputs. If open innovative schools are performing well, the learners, both traditional full-time learners as well as those currently out of school, will improve their performance and acquire the necessary skills for sustainable livelihoods. This would be an outcome. Learners who are successful in completing schooling will either continue their studies on a post-school level, be employed, or be self-employed. This is another outcome. This will hopefully lead to a decrease in unemployment, as well as economic growth, and ultimately societies that are more politically and socially stable. This would be an example of an impact. In such societies, there will be an increased interest in schooling from marginalized groups or from those who have not completed their schooling. The community will not only be more empowered, but will also play an instrumental role supporting those who want to continue their studies. Another impact. This is a cycle of continuous improvement, where each cycle will lead to a higher level of development of societies, a longer-term impact. The core impact is sustainable development through learning. So what is the model that we are currently following? The model consists of 4 phases, each with a specific focus as illustrated. The ownership of the model lies with the Ministries of Education. The model starts with phase 1 as the development phase, where the ministries identify the school subjects to be reversioned, identify the teachers who will be trained to do the content development, and appoint a service provider to develop a country-specific learning management system for the ministry. In phase 2, the ministries identify the pilot schools for the implementation of the e-learning supported by Aptus technology. In phase 3, the ministries progressively implement and expand on what was learned in phase 2, up to a point in phase 4 where the model has been implemented systemically. In phase 4, the resources developed in phase 1 and modified and added to subsequently are available for use by anybody, including teachers and learners engaged in traditional contact schooling. Cole's Aptus device enables the creation of a local Wi-Fi hotspot, allowing teachers and learners to engage with digital content on their own mobile devices, even where internet connectivity is not available. Does this sequential model make sense to you? What are the possible advantages and disadvantages of such an approach? So now we come to our last question, where we turn our attention to the implications for the future. As illustrated, we think face-to-face schooling will likely remain at the heart of the schooling system and is probably the preferred option for very young learners, as well as learners with special educational needs which parents and caregivers may not be equipped to address. although some learners with disabilities find ODL approaches more accessible than traditional methods. However, hybrid, that is, some face-to-face, some distance, some online, and some broadcasting, and blended, that is, face-to-face and online provision, could conceivably become the norm for older learners. However, for the approximately 300 million children unable to get to a physical school, an open schooling model using open distance and e-learning approaches and methods should be an essential element of an integrated schooling system. It is possible that learners could move between models at need. For example, learners attending face-to-face schooling who encounter certain barriers, for example, ill health, might continue learning from home through distance learning. Learners struggling with some subjects through distance learning might be integrated for a time into more structured, blended, or face-to-face learning. And so the system can be flexible to meet the needs of different learners at different times. So here are 5 questions that we think it might be useful to discuss on the Komosa Connect platform after you have read Chapter 1. Are there children, youth or adults in your own context who are not being served well by traditional bricks and mortar provision? If you were to introduce open schooling to assist them, would a complementary, alternative or mixed model be most appropriate? What is your theory of change for the future? What inputs, activities and outcomes would lead to what outputs and what impacts for future schooling provision? Is a phased model, developing, piloting, scaling, systemizing, necessarily the best route to follow? What are the alternatives? Should open schooling be integrated into the schooling subsystem? What are the implications of doing so? We look forward to sharing ideas with you on these issues. As with all COL resources, this set of slides and this presentation is published under a Creative Commons Share Alike International 4 license. Thank you.